asteroid impact crater caused the end of the Old Kingdom in Egypt. This is the Camille crater and its mysteries. This is just one more of the many impact craters found worldwide. This one was supposed to have taken place 3000 BC, 5,000 years ago, and could have put an end to the Old Kingdom of Egypt. This is the location of the asteroid or meteorite impact crater in southwest Egypt, the Camille crater on Google Earth, as we can see. And this is estimated to be about, according to Discovery magazine, the crater in the desert. They've collected 5,000 iron meteorites, dark rocks, as we can see pictured. This is what it looks like. It has been split apart, strewed all over the place. They estimate the original meteorite weighed about 5 to 10 tons, and it smacked this site at about 7,800 miles an hour, giving the crater the characteristic look and rays, as we can see visible in these pictures, rays emanating out from the impact crater. And of course the various discolorations of the iron, here we are, here for example, is still there. As we said, anywhere between 5 to 10,000 tons, 5 to 10 tons, 5,000 iron meteorites pictured around the area, and it was supposed to have taken place about 3000 BC. The Camille crater, as we see, is about 150 feet wide, 50 feet deep. May not break any size records, but the Egyptian crater lacks in range, makes up for with cleanliness. And let's go back to our Google. You want to go in? Should we go in a little bit more? You can see it much better. We were in, but let's go out again so we don't waste time. You can see by yourselves. Okay, this is it. And let's see the location. Let's go. Look at the location of it. I don't know what that is. What is that? There's even more there. You could look at this. This. You know, because of the fact that it's a desert, or maybe because of the blackness coming out, it could be that they're cinder cones or lava domes of some kind. Can you see that? Look at that. It looks like it's, I don't know too much about the geology of, and there's some more under there. It looks like it could have been a volcanic field covered by the sand. Isn't that interesting? And we saw some more over here. What is that thing there? It's not the first time people have discovered things. Is that a lake? What is that? Maybe it's a hot spring. What is that? Okay, that seems to be some kind of a cinder cone to me. And it's pretty clean, don't you think? Oh my, look at that. There's no sand on the sides of it or anything. We have to look into that. Let's mark this. I'm going to mark this. Cinder cone, Egypt. And I'll come back to it. Okay, well, we found something together, don't you think? It looks like a cinder cone to me. And all this area, of course, is covered by sand. This is Libya. Egypt is where the Camille crater was. And that's Sudan. It's just that, well, it looks like it's at the border of Egypt and Sudan. And, of course, the sea here is the Mediterranean Sea. Okay. Let's go to our trusty Wikipedia now. The Camille crater is a 147-foot wide, 52-foot deep, covered by sand at present, meteorite impact at the Waynat Desert in the New Valley Governorate of Egypt. It's 2,000 feet above sea level, located in 2008 using Google Earth satellite imagery. Well, they use Google Earth and we use Google Earth. Maybe we found those cinder cones and volcanic craters in that area covered by sand. When things are covered by sand, you tend to think that there's nothing there. But all right, there we go. We found something. We'll do another video on that. So that'll be upcoming. So this thing here was found by Vincenzo de Michel, former curator of the Civic Storia Natural Museum of Milan in Italy, northern Italy. The crater is about 50 meters in depth, 150 feet, 147 feet wide, 50 meters in depth, diameter, okay. Now the study of the Camille crater during the Italian-Egyptian expedition in February 2010 was part of the Egyptian-Italian science here, okay. Let's go back to the Gemel or Camille crater. We said fragments into thousands of pieces, impact with a sandstone bedrock. The Meteor-Asteroid have been about 4.3 feet wide and weighed about 5,000 to 10,000 kilograms, or about 5 to 10 tons. Meteor fragments totaling about 2,000 pounds were recovered during the geophysical expedition, the bulk of which are curated at the Egyptian Geological Museum. Specimens also curated at the Museum of Siena in Italy. Now, we remember that at one point we had an archaeological discovery. There was an announcement that King Tut's dagger was made of iron ore that was from a meteorite, and that it was, of course, this iron ore was in the museum and it was unrusted. It was very strong and no rust whatsoever. And because of the fact that it was special and it was from a non-Earth source, extraterrestrial source, the meteorite. Now let's go back to the Camille meteorite. We said that it struck Egypt about 5,000 years ago. That's about 3000 BC, leaving the crater surrounded by thousands of pieces of iron shrapnel that weighed, the total weight of it was about 3,500 pounds, while others say 5,000 to 10,000. All right, so the history of it, was found, we know that this is what it looks like, the shrapnel. Well, all right, this Camille crater was found around 2010 by people searching from Google Earth. And we have an article here from 9 years before that, 2001. This is by the Telegraph UK, and they say that they found similar impacts throughout the Middle East, one of them being, for example, in Iraq, where there was a collapse of an ancient civilization 4,000 years ago. That's about 2000 BC. Studies of the satellite images of South Iraq reveal 2-mile wide circular depression. Scientists believe that that could be an impact crater, and it points to the Middle East being struck by a meteor with a violence equivalent to hundreds of nuclear bombs, and that crater lies what would have been a shallow sea 4,000 years ago, and the impact would have caused devastating fires and, of course, tsunami floods. The chaotic catastrophic effect could explain why so many early cultures went into sudden decline around 2300 BC. They include the demise of the Akud culture in central Iraq, with the mysterious semi-mythological Emperor Sargon around the end of the 5th dynasty of Egypt's Old Kingdom, followed by the building of the Great Pyramids and the sudden disappearance of hundreds of early settlements in the Holy Land. Archaeologists have put forward a host of separate explanations of these events, local wars for one, to environmental changes, but recently astronomers suggested that it could have been an impact, a meteor or asteroid impact causing such historical mysteries. The crater's faint outline, and we see that, all right, this is talking about the 2003 BC, for example, in Iraq. But we're talking about the one that's even older than that. As world leaders celebrated the agreement to limit the impact of greenhouse gases on humanity, archaeologists were taking a fresh look towards the end of the old dynasty in the kingdom of Egypt due to climatic change, bringing droughts and emaciation to the populace, or was it due to something else? For nearly a millennium, Egypt's early pharaohs had prosperous and wealthy states that built countless temples and palaces. They were very prosperous, selling their grains to even Israel, and remember that the 12 tribes were able to survive there and grow. Now, enormous public works, the famous Giza pyramids, prosperity depended on the regular inundations of the River Nile throughout the countries. Otherwise, it would have been a complete desert. Then around 2300 BC, the ancient text suggests that Egypt's so-called Old Kingdom sustained something disastrous. An era of foreign invasions, pestilence, civil war, famines severe enough to result in even cannibalism. Can you imagine how starving they were? So they had a severe long-term drought affecting the region. And remember the story of the righteous Joseph who helped them. The 7 years of plenty and the 7 years of famine with the fat cows and the lean cows, the dream of the Pharaoh. Now, Egyptologists discuss the fact that there could be a very simple story of the drought resulting in the abrupt societal breakdown of ancient Egypt. The majority view today that the Old Kingdom did not come to a fall because of a sudden climactic change. This is according to Tom Schneider, professor of Egyptology, University of British Columbia, Canada. I'm reading from National Geographic article, and I'll leave a link below. He instead believes, and others believe, that climate stress affected different parts of Egypt in different ways. The Egyptologists called the first intermediate period based on a text called the Admonitions of Ipuwer, telling the story of a society in turmoil. He said, everywhere, barley has perished and men are stripped of clothes, spice, and oil. Everyone says there is none. The storehouse is empty and its keeper is stretched on the ground, meaning that he himself was dying of famine. Now, Ipuwer lamented that instead of the all-powerful and wise Pharaoh dominating the land, commoners asserted their authority with impudence and chaos reigned. So after the text dates to about 800 years after the events it purports to describe, ancient Egyptians were fascinated with the collapse. Scholars believe that these texts were part of a genre devoted to upholding the power in the Middle Kingdom pharaohs by frightening their subjects with stories of terrible consequences in a life without following and serving Pharaoh. The Egyptians themselves were fascinated by the concept of collapse. All right, so tomb paintings and inscriptions hint the environmental the environment became arid towards the end of the Old Kingdom, and some plants disappeared altogether, and sand dunes crept closer to river settlements. Data was drawn from cores in the Nile Basin and confirmed that the climate began to dry up around 2200 BC. Power slowly devolved from the pharaoh and his capital at Memphis to provincial leaders. Local officials could respond to farming crises faster and more effective than a distant ruler. Quote, the situation required people to be ingenuous, end quote. Who spoke at the, this is considering what Schneider said, who spoke at the American School of Oriental Research concerning this problem. In Upper Egypt, it was an era following the Old Kingdom's decline, was culturally very dynamic, showing that towns and cities such as Tel Edfu and Dendera expanded and even flourished. There may have been overall increase in population there as well. Archaeologists who had studied the skeletons of the first intermediate period, they say they do not show signs of famine, neither do those from the Old Kingdom. So they were well fed. Now, according to the writings of Ali Barakat, did the Camille meteorite contribute to the downfall of the Egyptian Old Kingdom? The remains of the Old Kingdom root installations, particularly 6th dynasty, have been found in southwest desert of Egypt, where this Meteorite-Asteroid struck, indicating well-established communication between Egypt and southwestern territories during the reign of kings Pepi I, Memer, and the first reign of Pepi II. These communications reached their peaks when Yam, which according to recent discovery is located in or around the Jebel Wenat region in southwest Egypt, became one of the major trade locations for Egypt. Harkuf, a well-known traveler of the period, directed 4 missions to Yam land, bringing important goods, and suddenly Yam was no longer mentioned in the list of trade missions that were directed to the foreign territories. As the 6th dynasty Egyptian government began to dissolve and collapse, reasons for the downfall of the Egyptian kingdom continued to be a mystery. Both natural, and social phenomena may have contributed to the collapse. A natural cause may prove a worthy contender, could be the Camille meteorite. Which struck southwestern Egypt during the historical ages, contributed to trade disturbances, of course, between Egypt and the southwest, and consequently weakened the last strong pharaoh of the Old Kingdom. During the Old Kingdom, which was 3,200 to 2,200 BC, Egypt achieved great accomplishment. You see, that's where the 2,200 BC is when it stopped. This is again the time when we had the impact in Iraq, and we had many other impacts throughout the whole of northern Africa. So perhaps this was not the only impact. Perhaps it was a series of impacts. Maybe perhaps it was a heavenly celestial body that broke up into pieces, and it came flying into pieces towards that area. I'm asking myself, could that also be the reason why they recently found what they have been calling the Sahara glass that has been melted? Many believe it could have been an atomic, the strength of an atomic blast, which would have been, of course, similar to this impact, the temperatures caused by this impact. And it could be the other ones as well. It could have been a group of impacts falling together in the same region that eventually caused the drought, caused the changes in the climate, and caused perhaps the current state of North Africa and Iraq that we can see that has turned into desert, a virtual desert, except for the major rivers. It is a virtual desert. Now, while general disorder and the independence of the local rulers helped bring about the collapse of the Old Kingdom, Scholars believe that climate change in Africa and the Near East had at least as much to do with it. Changes in the patterns of the monsoon rains over the Abyssinian highlands caused widespread drought, and a series of low Nile floods. Production abruptly declined, and hot winds blew from the south for weeks at a time. According to some ancient texts, sandstorms and dust storms hid the sun for days. Already dry farms turned to dust. In some places, the Nile was so shallow that it could be crossed on foot. Drought and famine in the Near East drove bands of starving, desperate refugees to Egypt's borders, putting additional pressure on food and water supplies. Well, we know that that is part of the Old Testament history having to do with the 12 tribes of Israel. Because of their drought and famine, they had to go to get grain from Egypt, and thank goodness, with God's providence, Joseph was there to help them. Now, the destructive event in the Yam region, Dr. Vincento de Michel, as we said, they found the impact crater from Google Earth. The ground check team of researchers confirmed the impact event suggested that it may have occurred between the years about 2,000 to 500,000 years ago, and what concerns the scientists here is the terrible effect of that event. The event was in the form of a relatively large asteroid fragment accompanied by huge fires when it crashed into the region. The projectile exploded on impact with the sandstone bedrock, creating a crater about 140, 150 feet in diameter. And the explosion ejected large sandstone blocks and debris, as well as meteoric iron fragments great distances around it. So that's what they believe have caused all this. Here we are at the event again, right there. And as we see, this is we remember, of course, the story, the recent archaeological discussions concerning the Sphinx at the pyramids of Egypt, right around in there, that the bottom part underneath the neck of it is eroded by water. And they believed that the temperatures, the climate there was totally different, that it was lush. It was basically like an Amazon type of a tropical atmosphere, a lot of water, a lot of rain, a lot of greenery, and it's changed. And that was, of course, because of the erosion of the rocks of the body part of the Sphinx in the Giza Plateau, near the Cairo pyramids. And they found it around the time of Napoleon, with the sand covered up to its neck. And then they started excavating it, and we see today that the body is fully exposed to us. But about 150 years ago, the sand covered up to the neck. It was just the head that was sticking out. So you can imagine how much sand, and here we are. So this is the whole area. This is the whole area that has been affected by asteroid strikes. And they go all the way, let's turn it a little bit. Okay, they go all the way through Saudi Arabia. Okay, this is Saudi Arabia here, and this is Iran, and this is Iraq. So you can see this is where the other asteroid struck as well. This is one of the parts that we already read about. It was an asteroid strike that was different from this asteroid strike. And let me see if I can go back to the, no, I lost that, okay. But I did see in one of my images that this whole area here was struck with like 20 asteroids. So it could have been something that devastated this whole area across all the way to Iraq. Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Ethiopia, Libya, Sudan, the whole area here. Had nothing to do with Southern Europe, you see. So I'll leave links below for you for this. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.